I was goofing off on X one day, diving into one of the many social networks out of boredom, when all of a sudden I saw something that floored me. It was a post by Shogun Supreme, at times SQ Kung Fu, that featured a woman in what looked to be power armor fighting a giant robot. In this 1 minute and 20-second clip, I saw everything I ever wanted: flying women, punches that destroyed walls, karate, missiles, and glowing red robot eyes. Also, it looked to be from the 1980s and featured all practical effects. I was in love immediately and responded with a simple manifesto: need to watch this ASAP. With this burning desire consuming my heart, I began digging. I Love Maria was released in 1988 in Hong Kong. Hong Kong cinema at this time was amazing. Films such as A Better Tomorrow from 1986, A Better Tomorrow 2 from 1987, and The Killer from 1989 are examples of Hong Kong films that had a huge influence on international cinema, particularly in the United States. Many American filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and the Wachowski siblings were directly influenced by director John Woo, who helmed all three of the movies just mentioned. The influence was so profound that the style of filmmaking became known as the John Woo style. This style was characterized by tight, rhythmic editing, intense gunplay, and the heavy use of juxtaposition between characters who represent good, evil, or something in between. One of the best examples of how this style influenced Western films is Desperado from 1996, directed by Robert Rodriguez, and The Matrix from 1999, directed by the Wachowskis. Desperado is a pseudo-sequel slash remake of Rodriguez's groundbreaking independent film El Mariachi from 1992. Starring Antonio Banderas and Selma Hayek, the Desperado is a mariachi who goes on a killing spree to avenge the murder of his girlfriend. It's an amazing movie, but the reason it's relevant is that it's a near-perfect John Woo-style film, directed by the Mexican-American director Rodriguez. It features intense gunfights, amazing editing, and heaping helpings of style that make it a visual treat to watch. The Matrix is a different animal compared to Desperado. It's one part sci-fi cyberpunk dystopia, one part kung fu film, one part shoot 'em up, and one part bondage leather fantasy. While it was lauded for its kung fu influences and choreography, a huge part of its success was due to the John Woo style gunfights that lit up the screen. They were wild, inventive, and seemingly never ending, and the Wachowskis borrowed heavily from the master, John Woo. Some shots were direct homages to the previously mentioned The Killer. It's sad that John Woo doesn't get enough credit for his influence on the Matrix trilogy, but that ends today. Now that I've taken a deep dive into Hong Kong cinematic history, I'm sure you are asking yourself, is this guy ever going to talk about I Love Maria? Well, the reason I have taken you on this mini cinema history lesson is because Choi Hark was a partner of John Woo through his legendary journey of making A Better Tomorrow 2, and The Killer. He produced all three films with Woo and is an incredible talent in his own right. Hark has a Chinese and Vietnamese background, was educated at the University of Texas at Austin, and soon began working in cinema, eventually starting a production company that would help kick off the golden age of Hong Kong action with John Woo. He has many films to his credit, but for now we can focus on I Love Maria, where he co-stars, co-directs, co-writes, and produces. I don't know if you're keeping score, but that is a lot of work. As for the movie itself, I Love Maria is a sci-fi action comedy directed by David Chung. The story takes place in a futuristic city plagued by criminal activity and chaos caused by the rogue hero gang. They plan to use advanced robots to destroy the police force and take over the city. The first robot they release is Pioneer 1. This robot takes out a small army of police with no issues and nearly kills an ambitious reporter named Chong Chi Kwong, played by Tony Leung. After this intense scene, we are taken to the gang's lair, where their leader, Savior, played by Ben Lam, introduces a deadly female robot named Maria, played by Sally Ye, designed for destruction and mayhem. However, things take an unexpected turn when the original Maria, Savior's girlfriend, also played by Sally Ye, gets upset that they modeled this new robot after her. I mean, I would be upset too if my boyfriend stole my face and put it on a new quote unquote doll. Soon, Chong gets fired from his job for not getting any good pictures of Pioneer 1 and runs into Curly, played by John Shum, who is a police special forces scientist or something working on a weapon to destroy Pioneer 1. However, Curly also gets fired, preventing him from finishing his work. He tries to drown his sorrows at a local bar and runs into Whiskey, played by the previously mentioned Choi Hark, who is already drowning in his own sorrows because he has left the hero gang. While at the bar, Whiskey gets so drunk he angers a group of men who want to beat the tar out of him. Curly intervenes as he doesn't want to see Whiskey get beaten by thugs and takes Whiskey home to sober him up. What Curly doesn't realize is that now Whiskey has been seen with a cop, and his fellow gang members are determined to kill him. The hero gang ends up sending Pioneer 2, aka Maria, after him. Maria attacks Curly and Whiskey with machine guns and missiles, but they manage to defeat her, with Curly reprogramming her so she follows their orders. Along the way, she develops her own personality, and hilarity and giant robot fights ensue. This is as much as I want to get into the movie myself, as I hate spoilers and want you to watch it. But I can start off by saying I've had way too much fun watching this movie. It was a bit of a dream come true for me to find a giant robot movie I hadn't already seen. The movie is loaded with practical effects, with Pioneer 1 being a great example. The action is intense, the editing is fast paced and well done, typical of Hong Kong films of this era. I mentioned Robocop in the title, and I got Robocop vibes, but in a completely different way from Paul Verhoeven's masterpiece. You're not going to find tongue in cheek social commentary littered throughout this, but instead, we have a nameless future city where the cops and business leaders are fairly incompetent and self serving, and the gang is a well funded force littered with internal politics that resemble family squabbling. It's fun and straightforward, and leaves the storytelling up to the core cast of Chong, Curly, Whiskey, and the real Maria, as well as the robot Maria. This leaves the robots as the main reason to watch this movie. Pioneer 1 is a marvel of practical effects. It's intimidating, fierce, and a joy to watch every time it's on the screen. The absolute rock star of this movie is Maria herself, both the robot and the gangster princess that Sally Ye brings to life. She does incredible work here. When she is the real Maria, she is all business, a cold-blooded hard-ass fighting for the love of the psychotic, megalomaniacal savior who is obsessed with robotics and conquest. She also brings softness to the character and completely owns the role. When she plays the robotic Maria, she sinks into it. The robot Maria is charming while menacing in a completely different way. She also nails the comedic elements of the movie, elegantly handling her robotic moves and slapstick moments with her fellow castmates that had me laughing out loud. She also puts in a lot of hard work, as what makes this movie work are the in camera effects and practical effects that have her strung up, flung around, and flying through the air all over the place. It's obviously a lot of dangerous acrobatics that she handles effortlessly throughout. She would later go on to star in The Killer with Chow Yun Fat, and both movies show her range and talent. It's worth watching the movie to enjoy her performance alone. There is more robot action, but I don't want to spoil it for you. Moving beyond this, if there are any challenging aspects of the film, it may be the overall tone. This is an action comedy in the truest sense. While Robocop's comedy was tongue in cheek social commentary, this movie's comedy is straight up slapstick, bordering on silly. That's where I got the Weird Science vibes from 1985. Much like Weird Science, in this movie we have a mixed bag of male characters who are pushed and challenged by a near goddess figure who helps them along their hero's journey. However, in Weird Science, the female character pushes and challenges her cohorts to do better, to develop, and to grow. I didn't get those vibes here, but Weird Science is a weird movie, an oddball nugget from the 80s, a time when plenty of unique movies like Back to the Future, also from 1985, and The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension from 1984 arrived on screen. These are quirky movies that seemingly could only be made in the 80s, and in that sense, I Love Maria fits right in. Just to veer back to the movie's strengths, there is a reason I mentioned Iron Man from 2007 in the title. Since that movie's debut, CGI effects have taken over to an almost annoying degree. One of the reasons Iron Man was a big deal was because it was a high quality, well-done film that gave a complete vision of Iron Man and his various abilities, from flying to repulsor blasts and more. We were told that the 2007 Iron Man movie and other superheroes could only be done right with CGI effects and the technological state they had achieved. Well, I'm here to call BS on all of that. While I'm not going to say this is the best sci fi action film I have seen, I was floored by the level of quality on display. This movie features flying robots, missiles, robot fights, explosions, and more. There is some blue screen thrown in, but nearly everything else is done practically with tender, loving care given to the camera work. In that sense, it was an absolute joy to watch, a refreshing triumph of old school special effects that have been largely banished from modern films. In short, we absolutely could have gotten a fun Iron Man film in the 80s, or a Spider Man film, or whatever. It may have been a bit cheesy, chintzy, and over the top, but so is I Love Maria, and I loved it. This all begs the question, why didn't this movie make a splash stateside? In the early 90s, my 8-year-old self would have lapped this movie up over and over again. If I were to put my international movie distributor hat on, a job I am not qualified to do, I would say it comes down to a few factors. First off, there isn't a strong male lead here. No, this isn't me being a card carrying member of the patriarchy. In the 80s and 90s, leading men like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a parade of the usual suspects dominated the action movie scene. That element is absent from this film, leaving this comedy troupe as the core story. Even Robot Maria herself lacks the menacing tone of another robot character, the Terminator. It's a testament to James Cameron's talent that he was able to turn a pile of steel with red eyes into the iconic movie villain we all know and love. Maria also lacks the conflicting mystery of Robocop, the character brought back from the dead, torn between his duty to uphold justice to the letter of the law, literally, and holding on to whatever precious humanity he has left. Finally, there are some other elements that are just awkward, with the movie veering from being a hardcore action film to a Three Stooges skit with all the elegance of a drunk uncle itching to bring up politics at Christmas dinner. In that sense, do you try and turn this movie into a kids' film? Or sell it to adults who are hungry for movies like Predator or Die Hard? In my summation, all of these things kept I Love Maria from having a shot at being a cult classic outside of true Hong Kong action movie aficionados. It's a shame, because in an age where anime and superhero films dominate the pop culture landscape, I Love Maria hits hard. It goes hard. Hell, it even laughs hard. For that reason, I'm super glad this movie came into my life. I approached this movie with an open heart, and for me, this movie was a welcome, action-packed slap in the face that had me laughing out loud. And for those reasons, say it with me now, I love Maria. This is Derek Scarzella. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching or enduring. If you're feeling generous or even just mildly entertained, please like, subscribe, and comment to support the channel. I know you've got opinions. Don't even try to deny it. Drop them in the comments. Argue with me. Argue with each other. You are officially invited to engage in glorious internet combat. You can also find me on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Instagram's awkward little brother, and the granddaddy of them all, Facebook. Oh, and while I've still got your attention, my novels The Vicious Game and Knuckle Crack Bone are up on Amazon. They're unapologetically gritty, punch-you-in-the-face crime stories with rave reviews. If you give them a shot, I'd be honored. Thank you again for watching. Rest well, hero. You're home.